Okay. What are we covering today? Does anybody remember? Samuel. So I didn't know what to cover next. I was thinking Isaiah, Ezekiel. Judy was talking about going through the rest of the minor prophets. I ended up choosing Samuel, 1st and 2nd Samuel, because for two reasons. For one, Samuel is the first person that prophesies the coming Christ, the coming Messiah. Okay, so it's a very common theme in the rest of the prophets, in the minor prophets, in Isaiah, in Ezekiel. They're talking about Jesus. Jesus is going to come. But the prophet that starts that is Samuel. Okay? Now, we do have examples of Christ in the Old Testament. All the sacrifices point to Christ. When we were covering Genesis, we had Melchizedek, we had Joseph, and we had Moses and Exodus. Why do you think Moses was like Jesus? How was Moses like Jesus? What do you think? How was Moses like Jesus? He interceded for his people, right? Primary thing, right? He's on Mount Sinai. His people are sinful, and he's saying, "God, please forgive them." Right? That's a clear Jesus. He's interceding for his people, right? And we're going to see today Samuel's going to have to do the same thing for his people. Also, they follow Moses just like we follow Christ, right? Samuel also has another pre-Christ figure that's even more clear than Samuel himself. Who is it? Probably the most obvious example of Jesus in the whole Old Testament. Who is it? Starts with a D, and it's the name of one of our elders. David! David is very obviously a pre-Jesus, and we'll talk about that much later, but when we come to him. But David is clearly a pre-Christ figure, okay? One thing that is important to remember, 1st and 2nd Samuel were both one work. It's one work, but they're divided into two scrolls, 1st and 2nd Samuel. So you're supposed to read and study it together, okay? Yes, we'll come to that. So the oldest manuscripts of fragments of Samuel were discovered as part of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so there are 4 major sections where the Dead Sea Scrolls found copies of Samuel. One of it had fragments going through the entire 2 books, but they're just fragments. So just piece here, piece there, piece there. It's not a complete manuscript by any means. This right here is an example of the earliest complete manuscript of Samuel. Well, this is not Samuel, but this is just part of Samuel. This is called the Aleppo Codex, and it is 10th century. And this is part of the Masoretic text, which is where we get our English translation of the Old Testament in our ESV Bibles and our NASB Bibles, NIV. So this is Samuel in the oldest surviving text of the Hebrew, and as you were saying, it's Hebrew. Okay. Anyway. So how about we start with Patricia? Could you read verse 1? That's okay. Well, he had 2 wives. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah, had children, but Hannah had no children. Okay, this kind of reminds you a little bit of who? Kind of reminds of, yeah. Yeah. And, right, Jacob's wives. Okay. This is where Samuel is from. This is Ramathaim Zophim. And so there is a little bit of a debate where this location is. Ancient Christian historian Eusebius believes that the modern day location is in Aram, which is right here. When the Crusaders came to Israel, they picked a different location, but according to Eusebius, the ancient Christian historian, this is the location. Okay, and Elkanah was Samuel's father. Ephraim, which we saw here, Ephraim right here. Does anybody remember that name? Where is it from? Ephraim is what? Ephraim is Joseph's second son who received the greater blessing. Okay? Joseph's second son who Isaac gave a greater blessing. Okay? So we're talking about that line still. So he was given more blessing. Okay? Okay. And so Elkanah had two wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Peninnah. And so Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not. Okay? Very sensitive situation. Okay? So, every year, what happened? Every year, Elkanah did what? Elkanah went where? He went to Shiloh. Shiloh is right here. Shiloh. We'll just call it Shiloh. Oh, my mouse is starting to get sleepy. Shiloh. Shiloh was the place where the Ark of the Covenant was. What is the Ark of the Covenant? Or Ark of the Testimony? What is that? What is the Ark of the Covenant? I'll give you a hint. It was part of the law given to Moses in Exodus on Mount Sinai. What is the Ark of the Covenant? The Ark of the Covenant has what? By the way, how many people were with us 2 years ago, when we were going through Exodus? How many people were with us? My wife, Ivy, were you there yet? Johan, were you there yet? Did you go with it? Maybe. You were, okay. That was a long time ago. So you're off the hook. You're off the hook. I'll review it with you later, but I'm just kidding. So the Ark of the Covenant, what was inside the Ark of the Covenant? What was inside the Ark of the Covenant? Huh? Stone tablets of what? The Ten Commandments, that's right. Okay, the Lord told the Hebrew people to build it when Moses was on Mount Sinai. So when Israel took the ark into battle, what would happen? When they took the ark into battle, who would win? Israel would win. God would give them special blessing. All right, God will give them special blessing. Okay, and another thing, Elkanah is going to Shiloh to perform sacrifices. What do these sacrifices point to? What do these sacrifices point to? All right, you can't all be thinking about Ken's class. You're not in Ken's class anymore. No, I'm joking. I'm just kidding. Of course. Sacrifices all point to Jesus, right? All sacrifices point to Jesus. Everyone's sleepy today. Where's Sophia? Where's the tea? Everyone, drink some tea. All right. So Elkanah would give portions to Peninnah, his wife and to her sons and daughters, but he would give Hannah a double portion because he loved her, even though she could not have children. What did Peninnah do? What did Peninnah do? Yes, she would provoke her because she had no children. She would say, "Ha ha, you have no children. Ha 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 ha." Right? So Hannah felt what? How did she feel? She wept, right? Very bad. She wept. She didn't want to eat. And so one year, Hannah was passionately praying for her womb to be opened while Eli was the high priest. By the way, who was the high priest? Who was the high priest? Eli. Who was the first high priest? Well, the one in Exodus. The one in Exodus. Aaron, right? And so everyone, all the high priests after Aaron were all in Aaron's lineage, right? Okay. Aaron was the first high priest, and Eli is the descendant, and Eli is the descendant now. Okay. Okay. Let's. How about Wei? Could you read this verse?
And she bowed a bow and said, "O thou of hosts, if you were indeed on the affliction of your servant, and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and then no razor shall touch his head."
Okay. What is she saying? What is she saying? If God would give her a son, then what? He would give him completely to the Lord. Okay? And what is this? No razor shall touch his head. What does that remind you of? Exactly. I heard it from Joanna first. Not that it's a competition. This seems to be similar to the Nazirite vow in Numbers chapter 6. Except the Nazirite vow was temporary, right? But this is different, right? This is going to be his whole life. Okay? So he's going to be given similar to a little bit like Samson. A little bit. And he will be, no razor shall touch his head. Man. Do you think about Samuel as a very hairy guy? I don't know, but no razor ever touches his head. So this is a guy given completely to the Lord. Yeah, that's funny. So Hannah was praying in her heart, and only her lips were moving. So she was going like that, you know. And Eli thought what? What did Eli, the high priest? He thought she's drunk. What do you think about that? What does that say to you about things? What do you think about Eli? She's praying, and she's very passionate. And Eli thinks she's drunk. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe, I don't know. What do you think about that? What do you think that says?
I think Eli probably thinks prayer has to be something very intellectual. It has to be.
You got to use acts, right?
You have to pray according to the Bible, or you pray
Adoration, supplication, thanksgivingness.
all with liturgy or whatever it is. But Hannah is really praying her heart out. She is giving her heart to God. And
She's praying like Judy.
Maybe she's just relaxed also. I don't know. Maybe she looked very relaxed. Just kind of not restricted, but more free.
Maybe.
So that we read that look at the surface.
Right. Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, it doesn't look at the heart.
Yeah. He might have a very shallow
Yeah.
religious kind of way to look at things, and And maybe he's never prayed like that ever, you know.
So it's like,
Wouldn't that be weird? Like, that kind of shows you he's never prayed like that ever. And it's always been kind of a formal thing with him. And then you see how bad his sons are. Well, you're not yet. You're gonna see his sons. You think Eli is bad. You hadn't seen nothing yet. Okay. Hannah explains what she's doing. And Eli answered, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made to him." And so I think because Eli is the high priest, I think he does have some kind of special blessing. So Hannah is no longer sad, and later she bears a son and names him Samuel, for she said, "I have asked for him from the Lord." And so if you say the word Samuel in Hebrew, it kind of sounds like heard of God. Okay? So if you're going to say the word Samuel in Hebrew, someone might hear heard of God. That's what it kind of sounds like. Okay? Okay. Hannah did not take Samuel to Shiloh temporarily because she wanted to wean him. After Samuel was weaned, she took him with her with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and she brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. So an ephah is about 22 liters. Okay. Now we have a major issue today. Okay, you ready? I'm hoping to get a big discussion. I'm hoping to get a big discussion, maybe a brawl, a riot. Well, maybe not that, but okay. What is a textual variant? Who knows what a textual variant is? Textual variant is when not all the Old Testament manuscripts say the same thing. Okay, so the Masoretic text, which we saw here, it actually says 3 bulls. It actually says 3 bulls. Okay, however, the Masoretic text says she took 3 bulls. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the Septuagint, and the Syriac text all read 3-year-old bull. So this is a major difference, right? We don't know. The Masoretic text, the text that all Protestants use, well, I don't know if all Protestants use, but all people who read the ESV, NASB, NIV, we use the Masoretic text for our Old Testament. It says, the Masoretic text says 3 bulls, while the Dead Sea Scrolls, Septuagint, and the Syriac text all read 3-year-old bull. And if you see on your ESV, the people producing the ESV, they actually sided with Dead Sea Scroll, the Septuagint, and the Syriac text, and they actually put 3-year-old bull. What do you think about that? What do you think about that, textual variant? It's not as bad as people say. People who say, "Oh, I don't trust the Bible." There's all kinds of mistranslations. It's really not as bad as it is, but there are some. And this is a minor issue, right? But what does everyone think about that?
They see from the geography is close to the Israel, right?
What?
From the geography of location, that thing is closer compared to the variant.
Where?
Location.
Location of
The
what?
location.
Of what?
Because, it's too, what do you call, small?
What are we talking about? I'm not sure. Are we talking about the 3-year-old bull or the 3 bulls?
Yes, yeah, because they are found in different location, right?
Oh, the text?
Yes.
Yeah, the one that we have, there's a Leningrad Codex, which is the complete Hebrew Bible, and yeah, there are the Masoretes were really kept by the Hebrew people, where the Septuagint is actually older.
Yeah.
The Dead Sea Scrolls is really old, like before the time of Jesus old. So yeah, they're found in different locations. And I think it does say something that the ESV actually went away from the Masoretic text. Sometimes they do that. And when you read the ESV, they actually don't use the Masoretic text. They actually go with the Septuagint, Dead Sea Scrolls, Syriac text. They actually go with that one because they think the Masoretic text is wrong there. But it's not really that big of a deal, is it? Right? I mean, people make a big deal out of these things. It's really not. For one, it's a very minor issue. And there's actually another one in 1 Samuel 1-7, and it's talking about a city that we'll talk about later, but it's also a very minor issue. And if you Google this, there's actually a book, an entire book just on this textual variant. One whole book on 3 bulls or a 3-year-old bull. Anyway, you guys are like, I am not interested in this at all. Okay. Anyway.
The whole point is, yes, there are some of these, but they don't change our doctrine. They're not that. It doesn't change too much at all.
Good.
Not really.
God is still exists in the Trinity, right? The gospel is still, Jesus is the sacrifice for the church, and, this is such a minor issue. It's not like the people who are, non-believers and in colleges, and they say, the Bible is just a big mess. They're not very truthful at all, are they? I mean, these are the actual issues that we're dealing with are small little things like this. Anyway, Hannah identifies herself as the woman who was praying to the Lord earlier when Eli thought she was drunk, when she goes back to Shiloh. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, and I made to him. Therefore I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is lent to the Lord. Okay? Oh, sorry. We forgot to come over this. This is what Eli said to her when she thought she was drunk. And Eli said to her, "How long will you go on being drunk? Put your wine away from you." And I think I like Judy and Patricia's view on this, is that maybe he doesn't pray that seriously. Okay. Did we miss this? We already read that, didn't we?
No, we didn't. We didn't.
Let me start this thing over. I'm confused. Let's try this again. Did it? I think what happened is I went back to the Masoretic text and then I messed myself up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and so this is kind of a Hannah prayer after she gives Samuel to Eli. Judy, could you read the first page?
And Hannah prayed and said, "My heart exalts in the Lord, my heart exalts in the Lord, my mouth to rise my enemies because of the joy of salvation. There's none holy like the Lord, there is none beside you, there is no rock like our God."
All right. Not much to really explain here. This is just a prayer of praise, right? Ivy, would you like to read?
Of the Lord, so only that none of the come from the mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The gods of the mighty are moved to utter good, to glorify our strength.
Loza, how are you good at reading English? Are you good at reading? How's your reading? You want to try? Oh, not bad, not bad. But those? Okay, Loza, your English is not bad reading. Annabelle, could you read verse 6?
The Lord heals and brings to life, he brings down
Okay, how about Johan?
The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and makes honest.
Could you keep going, please? Or maybe, how about, how are we doing? Who's that? Joanna, do you mind reading?
He raises up poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash. He keeps men sick of weaknesses and inherits the honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and from them he has set the world.
Okay, Mila.
He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the rich shall be cut off in darkness, for the mouth by one shall a man prevail.
Okay, and Jackie, do you mind reading verse 10?
The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Against them he will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the end of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the throne of his anointed.
Okay, so this is just a praise, right? This is just a praise. This is kind of strange. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Who is his king? Chapter 2. Judy, what do you think? He will give strength to his king. The Lord will give strength to his king. That's Jesus, right? The Lord will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. So, he might be talking about David, but I'm thinking, but this is a long way off now, but probably, and he might be talking about both of them at the same time, right? Okay, Elkanah went home, and Samuel ministered to the Lord in the presence of Eli the priest. So now we're going to talk about Eli's worthless children. Yes?
Basically, in the Old Testament, a lot of times, it's talking about what's happening at that time, but it also, at the same time, talks about Jesus in the future. So there's two meanings, one for what's happening at that time, and one for the future.
Okay. So, those who read, what were wrong with Eli's sons? What were wrong with Eli's sons? What?
There are scoundrels.
I think that's a really great word, scoundrels. And I love saying the word scoundrels, but they were like two Americans that visit Taiwan. They're here to party, and they call you and ask you, where can we party? And they're made ministers of the high priest. I mean, it's just, these people were just, I think the word that they use is perfect, worthless, just completely worthless. It says, now the sons of Eli were worthless men. They did not know the Lord. Okay. So when anyone offered a sacrifice, so this is what they would do. When someone would offer a sacrifice, they would put the animal into a boiling pot, the meat into a boiling pot. And the priests would come and they would take with a fork, a big fork, and they would take the meat out. And when the meat comes out of the pot, it would be much smaller. All the fat would have gone away. And so a portion of it goes to the Lord, and then the priest could eat a little bit. And so then the priest could eat. All right? Does everyone understand? So let me explain it again, because it's a little bit complicated. When people would give their sacrifices at Shiloh, they would give the meat, the sacrifice, and it would go into a pot. And the pot would boil away a lot of the meat and the fat. And that would be the offering to God. And they would take a big fork and take out the meat, some of the meat that's left, and that would be food for the priests, okay? Okay, however, Eli's sons would just take the raw meat. They wouldn't even allow it to be boiled. Okay? And if a man wanted to boil the fat first, they would threaten to take it by force. Okay? This is just a mockery of this position. Okay? A mockery of the high priest's position, just a complete mockery. Not even allowing it to be sacrificed, just take it raw. They would also sleep with the women who were serving at the entrance of the temple of meeting. Okay? So the women serving at the entrance to the temple of meeting, Eli's sons would have sex with them. Okay? So these sons were as bad as ministers as you can imagine. Just completely worthless. And verse 17 says, "Thus the sin of the young men was very great in the sight of the Lord, for the men treated the offering of the Lord with contempt."
I just cannot imagine how come allow this child is so bad.
Yeah, it's really hard. I think it's really hard for parents to punish their kids, right? It's counterintuitive, right? Because you love the kid and you want them to be happy, and you don't want to go through the trouble of punishing them, and then they hate you and like, oh, I hate you, I'm gonna run away and all this stuff, and
But they are priests. That means they're supposed to be the good example.
Right.
I was watching.
And so people are watching, and these people are acting like the worst pagans in the world, and they're just making and this is the high priest. And so this is just an abomination, right? Absolute abomination. Sleeping with the women there and just taking the offering completely at them, giving none of it to God. Just a complete abomination, right? Samuel was ministering. His mother would take robes for him every year. Eli blessed Elkanah and Hannah, and Hannah bore more sons. So Hannah, who was Samuel's mother, Eli blessed her, and she gave more sons. Eli does rebuke his sons, and he says, if someone sins against a man, God will mediate for him. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can intercede for him? Basically, they're directly sinning against God, aren't they? They represent God. And when you are a minister of God, you are held to a higher standard, aren't you? You are held to a much higher standard. You can get away with more sins if you're not a minister, if you're just a random guy. But now they are directly sinning they're turning an office created by God into a big joke. And so Eli is saying, you are sinning directly against the Lord. No one can intercede for you. And it might remind you a little bit about Aaron's sons, too. Aaron's sons, the strange fire. And then it says, but they would not listen to the voice of their father, for it was the will of the Lord to put them to death. So this is, and as you can see, whether it's Aaron's sons or Eli's sons, the job of the minister is sacred. It is not something to be some big joke. And God deals very severely with ministers who turn that office into a joke. Samuel continues to grow in stature and favor with the Lord and also with man. Okay, how about Patricia? Do you mind reading this page?
27?
Yeah.
And there came a man of God to Eli, saying to him, thus saith the Lord, if I will leave and prepare myself to the house of your father, and they will rebuke him.
Okay, so who's I in this? I is what? Is who? The Lord, right? Did I reveal myself when you're in Egypt? Okay, and Wade, do you mind reading verse 28?
And I choose him out of all the tribe of Israel to be my priest, to go up to my altar, to burn incense, to wear a food before me. I get to the house of your father all my offerings by fire from the people of Israel.
So again, I is the Lord. God is saying all the things that he has done. And then, Judy, tell us the point. Verse 29.
Why then do you scorn my sacrifices and my offerings that I commanded for my dwelling, and honor your sons above me by finding yourself on the choicest part of every offering of my people Israel?
All right, so basically, how could you, right? Right? How could you? How do you scorn my sacrifices, my offerings that I commanded for my dwelling, and honor your sons above me by fattening yourself on? Like, how I've done all this for you, how could you make a mockery out of an office that I gave you as a blessing, basically? How could you do that?
And your son you honor above me, basically. Right?
Yeah, you honor the sons. I mean, he loves his sons, right?
More than God, basically.
And but like, he's not disciplining his sons. I mean, you're really like, you know how Exodus talks about the children that should be put to death. They're actually in that territory, aren't they? I mean, maybe not. Maybe putting to death is too strongly. Where did Johan go? Where did Johan go? Oh, okay. What kind of drink? What's in the drink? Is it milk?
So basically, like, I think, like, during this time, like, like, they are supposed to be stoned.
Yeah, I mean,
They're supposed to be put to death.
of course. I mean, they're way beyond that boundary. The best thing, if they won't listen to him, and it's past the point of disciplining the kids at this point, because they're probably young adults at this point. The best thing would be like, get out of here. Get away from this office. This is not for you, or something. But these people are just absolutely doing horrible things, and Eli is just allowing this to happen, right? Okay. Yep.
For a priest in that time, do they need to be the descendant of Aaron or it could be
The Levites. They had to be Levite.
First, they must have
That's why the third book of the Torah is Leviticus, and that
Yes. Yeah. So Eli is Levites. Okay.
right. It has to. No, well, Eli even more strong. To put even more strongly, Eli is in the descendant of Aaron. Aaron was the high priest, and only that line, right, could yeah. All right, so Ivy, could you read this verse?
Therefore, the Lord, God of Israel, declares, I promised that your house and the house of your father will be out before me forever. But now the Lord declares, far be it from me. For those who honor me, I will honor. Those who despise me shall be gladly as me.
Okay, how about go ahead, verse 31, Losa.
Behold, the day are coming good when I will cut off your strength and the strength of your father's house to them, and there will not be an old man in your house.
Okay, Jackie, verse 32.
Then in distress you will with envious eye on all the prosperity that shall be bestowed on Israel. And there shall not be an old man in your house forever.
Wow. Okay, how about Annabelle.
The only one of whom I shall not cut off from my altar shall be spared weeping in his eyes, out of grief in his heart, and all the descendants of her house shall die by the sword of men.
Okay, Joanna, verse 34.
This that shall come upon your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, shall be the signs of the Lord, the dead shall die of sin.
Well, this is just harsh. There's only one will not be cut off from my altar and be spared. And this, I guess, this is so that the line of Aaron can continue and you can continue to have a high priest. But only one will be spared, and his eyes will weep. All the other descendants of Eli, this is just and God doesn't do this to everyone. But when you're a minister, you are put on a much higher standard. And so all the descendants of your house shall die by the sword. This is just and then both his sons will die on the same day. This is a severe discipline. Okay, next is Mila.
And I will raise up for myself a faithful priest, who shall do according to my ways in my heart and in my mouth. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall go in and out before my anointed later.
Okay, so who is this person he's going to raise up? They're going to raise up Samuel. And then I'm pretty sure out before my anointed, this is probably Jesus again, right? Because it's forever. Okay, Patricia, last verse.
And everyone who is left in your house shall come to you before him for a piece of silver or a loaf of bread, and shall say, please put me in one of the priestly places, that I may eat a morsel of bread.
Okay, so this is going to be a much better prophet. Okay, and so of course this is Samuel. Okay,
Samuel's father is also from Aaron's descendants, or just
Samuel? Samuel?
Samuel's father?
I know. Well, I don't know. Let me get back to you on that. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. Let me tell you later. All right. So, chapter 3. It says the word of the Lord were rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. The word of the Lord was rare in those days. So, what is the word of the Lord? What is the word of the Lord? Yeah. What God is saying, right? And it's interesting, there's no word of the Lord in those days. The word of the Lord is mentioned 14 times in Samuel. 14 times in Samuel. Thus says the Lord is mentioned 8 times in Samuel. So Samuel is really it's a blessing where the word of the Lord is coming back to Israel. Now that the word of the Lord is coming back, it's a sign of blessing. So Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called Samuel, and he said, "Here am I," and read into Eli. So Samuel is asleep, or it doesn't say asleep, but laying down, where the ark of the covenant is, and he hears the Lord calling Samuel. And so what happens? He runs to who? Eli. He thinks Eli's calling him, right? Who was it really? God. Eli says he did not call him. So Samuel went back, he lay down. This actually happens 3 more times. On the 3rd time, what did Eli say? Eli said, right. Eli thought, well, maybe this is God. Maybe, and so he tells Samuel what to say next time he hears it. So he hears it the 4th time, and then Samuel says, "Speak, for your servant hears. Okay? And so Samuel is being, and then he's going to get a prophecy. So this makes Samuel a what? It starts with a P. Prophet. Samuel is now being called to be a prophet. Being a prophet is anyone and everyone cannot say that they're a prophet. I'm not a prophet. I'm not the son of a prophet. People cannot call themselves a prophet unless something like this happens. God is calling Samuel and says, "Thus says the Lord," right? And so Samuel is becoming a real prophet. Okay. Wei, why don't you read verse 11?
And then the Lord said to Samuel, "Behold, I am about to do a thing in Israel, at which the 2 ears of everyone who hears it will tingle."
Okay, Judy, verse 12.
On that day I will fulfill against Eli all that I have spoken against his house, from beginning to end.
Okay, so this is what verse 12 tells you. What kind of message is this? Message of starts with a J. Judgment. Okay. Ivy. Blaspheming God. Okay, Losa. Wow. Okay, so God doesn't say you should have killed him, but he does say you should have done what? Restrained them. They are blaspheming God. They're taking this very important office of God and they are making it a mockery. You should have restrained them. And then look at this. The iniquity of Eli's house shall not be atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever. Ouch. No more forgiveness. No more grace. You know, we kind of think of God as just, he's always gracious and there's nothing, this is pushing God too far. High priest turning that office into a blaspheming against God, that's too much. They crossed the line. And God finally says, Eli's house shall not be atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever. Ouch. I hope you all have a nice day today. You're all going to be very depressed all day. I hope I don't do anything like that. Anyway. Okay. Major judgment against Eli and his sons. But thankfully it also establishes Samuel, a good prophet, as a prophet. Okay, verse 15 through 18. You'll get some milk?
Something like that.
What did you buy? What did you drink? You bought something to drink? Water? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh well. So Samuel told Eli the prophecy. What was Eli's response when he told that horrible prophecy? What was Eli's response? What do you think? Samuel was just given a horrible prophecy against Eli. What is Eli, when Samuel tells him the prophecy, what is Eli's response? He didn't argue, right? Eli is a lot more mature than his sons. He says, "It is the Lord, let him do what seems good to him." Eli is a lot better than his sons. And he just says, "It is the Lord, you let him do what seems good to him," I think Eli takes his office a lot more seriously than his sons. Yes?
I think that Eli just remind me of some people, including me. Sometimes we do things too long. You know, for us, it's like duty. We don't serve or we don't do the job with hearts or
Right.
with passion.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, if he really served God with passion, he knows this is something a big mistake.
Right.
We should respect them. We should teach them the lessons. But she didn't do anything. And even when God talked to Samuel more than 3 times, just Samuel ran to him more than 3 times. He just realized it could be from God. So for me, it's like I don't know. He doesn't have the heart to serve. Yeah,
Wait, who doesn't have his heart to serve?
to serve as a priest.
Eli's? Eli doesn't have it? Oh, Eli's sons, right? Well, it says Eli's sons, they were sleeping with the women that were helping, and they were taking the food that was meant for the offering. The offering meant to atone for sins. They were just, give me all of it, I'm going to eat it. Just complete mockery of it. They were serving in a perverse way.
Okay.
Well, he's talking about Eli.
I'm talking about Eli, not the sons.
Not the sons.
Well, yeah, he didn't discipline his sons.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's not really doing what he's really doing.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't do his job.
No, he didn't. He was a bad father, right?
He's a bad father.
He's a father just says, they're kids, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, he's also saying, the temple of the Lord is not sacred, so do whatever you want here.
Yeah, he didn't restrain them. He should have restrained them, right?
You should have made this place
How much
holy.
time? 9 more minutes. I gotta rush.
Oh, it makes me so mad about it.
I don't know, something that was our kids, he would like boil his kids and offer to the Lord.
And maybe it is, the son took a big portion, he also shared.
All right. Okay, Taiwanese people. What Eli's sons did with the meat is wrong. Don't think, ooh, I'm going to be a high priest, I'll get all the meat. No. You're supposed to boil it away. Well, they're going to cook it, right? They're going to cook it. That's the Taiwanese sin. Okay, I'm trying to make a cute joke. Okay, Samuel became known to all of Israel and was established as a prophet. The Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh. Samuel really becomes the next major prophet after Moses. Moses is the most important prophet in the whole Old Testament. Like 5 books of the Torah. Ouch. Well, maybe wow. 5 major books of the Old Testament. Very important. Every Israel respects Moses before everyone, including David. But there's judges in the book of Judges. There's judges. There's Joshua, but now you have Samuel, the first very major prophet to replace. Okay.
Can I just say something? Samuel, the first prophecy that he made was, Eli, you are going to be cursed, basically. You're not going to be forgiven because of what you did and what you had allowed your sons to do. This is what the Old Testament prophets normally do. They convict people of their sins. Right? They don't just say nice things like, oh, you will be prosperous, you're going to have a good life, bless you, maybe. But they also convict people of sins. And that's why sometimes, well, not sometimes, a lot of the times they get killed.
Right.
It's a hard job to do.
It's harder.
Some of the bad news.
That means very
Right. But we all need it. All of us need it. If you think, well, I don't need harsh sayings of the Bible because I'm very mature, that's probably a sign of immaturity. This is good for all of us. This strong, sobering language is needed for all of us so that we take God seriously and we take our lives that we live for Christ very seriously. Right? Okay. Okay, so who are these people right here? The Philistines. This is where the Philistines were. So chapter 4 starts off, Israel battled the Philistines and lost, and 4,000 men in the battle died. Samuel is more of a historical book. So Habakkuk was really kind of hard to understand. Maybe none of you had any problem reading Samuel because it's a very historical book. And so we can just kind of cover big sections at a time without any difficulty. So after Israel loses, what do they decide to do? Okay, we're going to go back to battle. This time we're taking the Ark of the Covenant. Do they win? No. Shocking. They take the Ark of the Covenant. They shout in excitement, thinking they would surely win now. Even the Philistines were afraid. It talks about the Philistines. They still remember what happened in Egypt with Moses. Even with the ark, Israel was defeated. They lost not 4,000 men, 30,000 men. And everyone fled to his home. The ark of God was captured, and the 2 sons of Eli died. So why do you think Israel lost even with the Ark of the Covenant? Why do you think?
At this point, I think a lot of sons died. Eli's son.
Probably. The high priest really was a bad leader, don't you think? There's a Russian proverb, a fish rots from the head down. This is what Russian people say. The fish rots from the head down. And basically what that means, if there's a group of people that's got problems, you look first at the leader. And I think if there's any one person to blame, it would definitely be Eli, and not disciplining his sons, and his sons who were just making a mockery out of everything, right?
So Eli is like the most holy person in Israel. He's supposed to be the most holy people in the Levites camp, and then he's like this. His son's like this.
Mm-hmm.
So how holy can Israel be?
Well, I imagine if we went to church and the pastor, thankfully, Pastor Kim and Pastor Brown are nowhere near like this, but imagine we went to church and the pastor is sleeping with deacons in the church and taking all the money for himself, and then we had to just accept it. Can you imagine that? And so that person would be very liable to judgment, and that's basically what Eli's sons were doing. So Eli was told that the Israelites were defeated, his sons died, and the ark was taken. When he heard about the ark being taken, he fell backward from his seat by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died. So one day, they all died. This is clear judgment, right? Whenever you have all these coincidences happen at once, you know it's judgment. Okay? And he's an old man, so falling for him is not good. His daughter-in-law heard the news, and she was so shocked, she gave birth. And then she died giving birth. More judgment. And she named the child Ichabod, which means no glory. It means no glory, because she said, the glory has departed from Israel. Okay, this is very serious. Let me ask you another question. How is Jesus similar to Israel's high priest? How is Jesus similar to Israel's high priest? How is Jesus similar to Israel's high priest? He's the ultimate high priest. And you can argue that the high priest itself really represents Jesus to begin with. But giving the sacrifices, now, does the church have a high priest? Not necessary anymore. Jesus fulfills that role, doesn't he? Okay. Anyway, so they brought the ark to Ishtod Ishtod is right here. Ishtod, and set it beside Dagon, one of their pagan gods. What happened to Dagon? It's kind of funny. What happened to Dagon? Dagon fell face downward on the ground before the ark. So they put Dagon back in its place, and the next morning, what happened? They rose early, and Dagon had fallen face downward again. The head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off on the threshold. So probably this is God showing, no hands, meaning God has no power, and cutting off the head, maybe, destroying Dagon. I'm not really sure. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. Okay? The people of Ashdod began getting tumors. And it's not really clear if this is a tumor like cancer, how we think of it, or like a boil, like in like one of the old plagues, a boil or something like that. But they got tumors. A lot of them died. They decided to take the ark to Gath. Where's Gath? Is Gath? Oh, the Gath's right here. Tumors began growing on them as well. People were still dying. So they sent the ark to Ekron, which is right here. And the people at this point in Ekron knew about what was going on, and they were like, "No, don't send it here." So they decided to take it back to Israel. Okay, they decided to take it back to Israel. After 7 months, the Philistines asked the priests and the diviners what to do with the ark. They said if they send it back to Israel, they must return it with a guilt offering so they can be healed. So they gave 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the numbers of the lords of the Philistines. The Philistines are afraid of... So the Philistines at this time, they're afraid to end up like the Egyptians. The God of Israel, the God of the Hebrew people, just destroying Egypt is still fresh on everyone's mind, even in Samuel. And so they're afraid of the God of the Hebrew people, and so they don't want to return it back to Israel without a sin offering. So, their priests sound even better than Eli's sons. They took 2 milk cows and yoked them to a cart, and then they included the gold and the ark, and the cows went straight to Beth Shemesh. Whereas Beth Shemesh is right here. And that was a sign to them that this judgment was directly from the Lord. Beth Shemesh rejoiced and offered sacrifices when the ark was returned. However, 70 men died because they looked upon the ark. So the ark killed mostly people of the Philistines, but also killed people in Israel too. Why is that? Why did the ark kill people in both people? Why is that? Why does I know we're past an hour, but
Is it because the people were sinning against God?
they're both sinful, right? They're both sinful. They're still not doing things that you're not supposed to look at it. Israelites are just as sinful as the Philistines. This is not like the Old Testament is not a nationalistic book. The Old Testament, the Philistines are sinful, the Israelites are sinful, God is holy. Israel's not holy, not even close. The Philistines are definitely not holy, but they seem to respect God a lot more than the Israelites. But God is holy, and it doesn't matter. You have to treat God with... And people are dying because of God on both sides. The Philistines are dying. Eli's sons are dying. People looking at the ark are dying. Okay, we're almost done. Who read last? Patricia, do you mind reading this, please? This is, yeah. Yep.
And Samuel said to all the house of Israel, if you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods, and Ashtaroth from among you, and direct your heart
All right, Wei.
So the people of Israel put away the past and the tomorrow, and they serve the Lord.
Okay, so what did they have to do to get the blessing back from God? They needed to do what? Get rid of the idols. That was their problem, idols. They didn't have the best example with Eli. Now Samuel's here, and he's going to put them on the right path. Get rid of your idols. So Samuel gathered all of Israel at Mizpah to pray to the Lord. And so he says, so they gathered at Mizpah and drew water and poured it out before the Lord and fasted on that day and said there, we have sinned against the Lord. And Samuel judged the people of Israel at Mizpah. So really not a very long prayer. It's just very simple. We have sinned against the Lord. This is confession. This is repentance. You know, we have sinned against you, Lord. The Philistines heard that Israel was gathered together, so they decided to battle them. Israel became afraid this time. People urged Samuel to continue to cry out to the Lord. Samuel offered a nursing lamb as a burnt offering to the Lord. Again, all sacrifices point to Jesus. Samuel cried out to the Lord for Israel, and the Lord answered him. Almost finished. Verse 10, when the Philistines drew near to attack, the Lord thundered with a mighty sound against the Philistines and threw them into confusion, and they were defeated before Israel. So Israel retook all the cities back from the Philistines that they had lost. And again, here is... so why did Israel finally win? Why did Israel finally win? The last question. They got rid of their idols. They repented. They confessed. They had to sacrifice. All these things. I mean, just the same things we do as Christians. We have Christ as a sacrifice, confess, repent. This is the same thing that we do, right? Except we don't actually sacrifice an animal. We have Christ for that. And again, there is another textual variant. One of the cities is different in the Masoretic text and in the Dead Sea Scrolls and Syriac and Septuagint. Anyway, this section ends with Samuel firmly establishing himself as a godly judge and prophet for all of Israel. And he even intercedes for the people, just like Moses. He sort of leads everyone into a great repentance, and then they get blessing, right? Just like Moses interceding for. And so you might think, if you're Israelite, wow, this kind of reminds me of Moses. Okay? All right. I'm sorry we went